Hello, I'm Josh Nichols. I'm sitting here right now with Matt Stevenson, and we're at Family Solutions Counseling. Matt and I are both licensed marriage family therapists, and we're going to talk about something really important today. So, if you haven't seen the latest blog on Family Solutions website, if you go to FamilySolutionsOK.com, you can read the latest blog that was written by Matt that has to do with a very interesting form of therapy called discernment counseling. And so if you're a couple or you know a couple that has ever had the thought of, our marriage is hanging on by a thread, our relationship's hanging on by a thread, I want in, my partner wants out, what do we do? Well, discernment counseling might actually be a fit for your relationship or for this or whoever you might know that is looking for that. So it's a form of counseling that's not known amongst the general population very well, but is definitely gaining more momentum.
Discernment counseling isn't something that you can figure out what it is just by the name. It's kind of
right.
deceptive that way. So people kind of, well, what is discernment counseling? And
right. Which is a question we're going to ask because it's hopefully in the near future it'll be something that people will recognize by name. That'd be the goal. So, but that's the question we're going to go ahead and start with. Is Matt's a licensed marriage family therapist, and he is in the process of finishing up certification in discernment counseling. And the name of his practice is Real Life Family Therapy. Real Life Family Counseling. But he offices here with us at Family Solutions. So let's go ahead and ask this first question of what is discernment counseling?
Well, discernment counseling, the term discernment refers to just basically discerning what the path forward is. What's the path forward for us? And we'll talk about there's 3 different paths that we talk about in discernment counseling. But what it's meant to do is take a couple, just like you said, somebody is kind of almost desperate to save the relationship, and the other not so much. That it's kind of that we call them ambivalent. Kind of like, well, I don't know if I want to stay in this relationship. I'm frustrated. I don't know if we can save this. And then there's some who are not so ambivalent about it. They are wanting out. Pretty explicitly wanting out. And so how can a therapist deal with a couple in that spot? That's one of the big challenges that any family therapist goes through with any couple. So.
And I think they're referred to as the leaning in versus leaning out.
Yep, there's usually a spouse or a partner that's leaning out. They're kind of like, I don't know if I want to save this relationship. And then the other is leaning in, which obviously they're the one that's usually going to initiate counseling, because a lot of times what they want to do is to they want to save the relationship, and they think, well, we'll just get into counseling and we can save the relationship. And of course the other partner, the leaning out partner, is like, well, I guess I'll go. But they're going to be the ones checking their watch the whole time and just kind of saying, when is this going to be done? When can we be done with this? And so ultimately what happens is a counselor, a good caring counselor, will ultimately join with that leaning in person and almost become a team with that person to try to drag that other person along, that leading out person. And that it creates a very difficult situation.
It doesn't work very well.
It doesn't work very well.
Right. So you and I are both marriage family therapists, and so it's safe to say that we're advocates for the relationship.
Absolutely.
We want to see them work out, and we love doing couples therapy as marriage family therapists. So
absolutely love it.
There can be a challenge here in thinking that when you're working with someone who's doing discernment therapy, that the counselor isn't supportive of couples therapy, because there's basically this time where this structure where you're seeing them individually, trying to help basically the leaning out partner really figure out if they want the relationship.
That's right. Each partner has work to do in this. Everybody has a role to play. A lot of times that you talk about that structure, there's almost, we call it a dynamic of when someone is leaning in to the degree someone is, they're pulling someone along and they're trying to pull that person back in, it creates a cycle where the more they try to pull that person, the more that person pushes away.
Right.
And so if we can take that leaning in spouse and get them in a way to ease off a little bit, that will help the leaning out partner not have that much to react to and to push so hard, so they'll start to push less away. And so in doing that, you have kind of the best chance for success.
Right. For
Whereas
that
if
relationship.
you just keep that, if a therapist unwittingly keeps that cycle going by partnering with
Mhm.
the leading in spouse, then
Mhm.
it almost heightens
Right.
the risk of that
Right.
relationship dissolving. So
Yeah, because it's very hard to do couples therapy when both spouses aren't on the same page. I know when
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
working with a couple, we set goals
Mhm.
typically, and those
Mhm.
goals have to be mutually agreed upon
Mhm.
for us to make progress. So would seem to be very hard to do with a couple where there's one person leaning in, another one leaning
Mhm.
out.
And from what I've studied, that it's about half and half. Half the couples that come in will be that. They'll be ready, both of them ready to work. Nobody's leaning out, nobody wants out. They're both ready to work on these issues. And then about the
Right.
other half of the couples, even some would say more than half couples are coming in as what we call a mixed agenda couple.
Right.
Where one's kind of leaning out and the other's leaning in.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah.
So, in closing here, would you mind telling our viewers what they can kind of look for within themselves or within their couple relationship, where they might consider discernment counseling as opposed to traditional couples therapy?
Yeah. Well, I would say if you're on the brink of dissolving that relationship, whether it's divorce or separation or whatever, I mean, you can tell, when that's happening. That's when people reach out for help, and that's when you should reach out for help.
Right.
So just when you seek out a counselor to help with that, especially if you're the one that, if you can identify this cycle, if you're the one obviously pulling things along and trying to save this relationship, and you feel like the other one is not so much in this, it might be time to find a discernment counselor, somebody that can help you in that process and say, okay, well, here we are, and allow
Right.
each of you to be honest about where you are. So
it's not a big criteria. It's just that little shift in thinking where one person is like they don't know if they really want it. Maybe both are like that.
yeah,
but
I've
it's
had
just-
both people be
yeah.
like that sometimes.
Right.
So, for sure.
In couples therapy and in determining if you're a couple is going to just do couples therapy, a lot of times that works out really well when both couples are like, hey, we both want to make this work.
Right.
And so couples
There's
therapy
that.
is the viable option there. But it's that one shift in thinking where we just don't know, and it sounds like discernment counseling is where
if there's that I don't know. I don't know
Right.
if my partner is in this as much as I am. I don't know if
Right.
I'm in this as much as my partner is. There's
Mhm.
that I don't know. That discernment counseling is a great place to
Right.
start. And so what it does, discernment counseling, like I said, it's discerning one. We kind of work on. It's a decision making process. It's actually, we don't technically define it as couples counseling. It's almost pre-couples counseling.
Mhm.
I've heard it said, it's kind of like, well, if couples counseling is the medicine, we got to decide if they want to take the medicine,
Right.
and so
Exactly.
it's a short-term, 1 to maybe 5 sessions at the most. It's a
Okay.
decision-making process as far as
Right.
do we want to get into couples counseling, and
Mhm.
with that leaning out spouse, with this dynamic in place like that, that's where you have to start. Is basically we lay down 3 options. The first option that we all kind of talk about individually and then even as a couple is the first option, the first path, you could say, is the status quo, keeping things the way they're going.
Right.
And of course, most people look at you and just shake their head, absolutely not. That's why we're here. We don't want to keep things going.
Right.
The way it's been going, it's terrible. We're frustrated, and something's got to give. The second path is the dissolving of the relationship. Divorce, separation, whatever. That's kind of path B. And we talk about it. Everything's an option.
Mhm.
And I think that's important for that leaning out spouse because they need that to be an option.
Right.
If you just take that away from them, then they're just leaning out even more.
Right.
So we give them that option. We talk it through. We really dig into it. But then the third option is the big one. It's this decision to say, whatever's been done with divorce, whatever steps have been taken, we're going to just put it over here on this shelf for 6 months. And we're just going to stop everything for 6 months, and we're going to agree to just engage in this whole process, this couples counseling process, for a period of time. We try to say 6 months, but it's just whatever the client wants. 3 months, 6 months, a year, who knows, whatever they choose. And we say, we will dig in 100%. I'll look at my contribution, they'll look at their contribution, we'll come together, we'll try to resolve some of these issues, and then at the end of that time, we'll pick this thing back up and see what we want to do with it.
Right. Yeah.
And so it allows it allows everybody to slow down.
Right.
Because people look at the divorce process, I mean, any divorce attorney will tell you, people get on this train and it's hard to stop, even if you wanted to.
Right.
And this allows you to stop that train, or at least slow it down.
Right.
And go into it as an informed couple. So.
That's good. I really appreciate you taking time out to talk to the viewers here. If you guys want to know more about Matt or what we're doing at Family Solutions, just go to www.familysolutionsok.com. Click on Matt's profile, read a little bit about him, and again, I appreciate you doing this for us
Thank
today.
you for doing this for me.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
All right, everybody, take care.